OK, we've heard from the politicians on all today's big stories, but now it is your turn. We're live and we're ready to hear from you on Raw Politics, your call. So welcome to the show and a big shout out to our MEPs we're going to come to in a second. And indeed, whether you're watching on TV or on Facebook, we've got an eclectic mix of topics tonight, not least of all, the new Commission President-elect. Let's have a look at what we want you to talk about over the next 45 minutes or so. You know what to do. Pick up the phone. It is our last programme of the season. It continues to be free. No reason not to. Give us a call, 00800 333 702. Our team's standing by here in the European Parliament in Strasbourg to take your calls. You can also email us at rawpol@euronews.com. And we're live on Twitter and Facebook. Join the debate using the hashtag #RawPolitics. And I'm delighted to say tonight we've got two delightful MEPs, Asita Kanko, who is an MEP from Belgium with the European Conservatives and Reformers. Welcome to you. And Seb Dance, who is a Labour MEP from Britain with the Socialists and Democrats. We're going to hear from them in a second and indeed from you. But first, let's get a quick news update and let's go to Euronews' headquarters and let's join Isabel. Good evening, Isabel. Isabel, thank you very much indeed. A full news bulletin coming up at the top of the hour, 8 p.m. CEST here on Euronews. Let's start off with Ursula von der Leyen making history here in this Parliament. About this time yesterday, becoming the first woman to be elected as the next Commission President, but only just a handful of votes in it. She got 9 over the number that she needed to get. 383 is what she got in the end in terms of number of MEPs backing her. But the question is, what next? And is she a good choice for Europe? Seb Dance, good choice for Europe?
Not the best choice, certainly. The best choice, in my view, would have been Frans Timmermans. He was obviously our candidate in the Spitzenkandidat process. He ran an excellent campaign. And the tenets of what he stood on, I think, are the basis on which I would want Europe to reform. Having said that, this is not a perfect process. This is a process that arises from the nominations that 28 heads of government can feel comfortable with, at the very least. And therefore you are bound to end up with a candidate who is far from perfect if you just take the nomination from the 28. I'm sad to see the Spitzenkandidat process in this instance sidelined. I hope it isn't in the future. But certainly Ursula von der Leyen is someone that has impressed us more as we've heard more from her. But more than that, and crucially, she has adopted in writing many of the tenets on which Frans Timmermans based his campaign. And I think on that basis, we were relatively happy to vote for her approval.
Asita, what do you think? Good choice?
Yeah, I will not make a judgment about people, about individuals, because what I worry about is this going to be to bring good results for what we care about in Europe. So I don't know how this is going to evolve, but we were not convinced. So we chose for abstention in this case because of two reasons. First, we were not convinced 100%, so we couldn't vote for her. But we also have some few elements that we agree about. So we will not just throw baby away with all the water. So we decided to give her the opportunity to show that she can bring the answers that we were expecting. I was expecting a lot of ambition regarding women's rights, regarding guarantees that could make people continue believing in the European Union, that the European Union could go more about the normal people in the street and not so much about the top jobs.
I mean, as I said, she did make history last night. So, I mean, do you think it was a significant moment that a woman for the first time?
I wouldn't say, I am actually my whole life and my whole career I've been working on women's rights. I would be really the first one to be happy that a woman becomes president of the Commission. And yesterday I really wanted to vote for a woman. It's the first time that I can do that in Parliament. I'm a new MEP. And I'm very sad that she did not actually convince me completely. I expected a lot from her because she's a woman acceding this position. It's so important, so powerful that she could use it to make stronger statements But I hope she has 5 years now, so I hope she will use these 5 years to every day earn a majority, but to also try to give more answers to all the political groups, to all the people who are represented here. And if she wants to push women's rights anyway, she will find in me always a supporter in that, in that matter.
Let's bring in some callers. We've got Anne on the line from Norfolk in England. Good evening, Anne. What do you think? Do you think Europe has made a good choice by electing Ursula von der Leyen?
Well, let's see what we can only wait and see, really. It was a very small majority, but maybe she'll turn out to be brilliant, or maybe it'll be a disaster. But I'd like to know, will she be closing down the coal mines in Germany? I wonder how that's going to go down with the Green Party. Will she do that? And if we're out of the common market, what is she going to promise all the European farmers? Because I buy quite a lot of the food, but if we're out and there is no cross-border there with their goods, what's going to happen to their goods? Are we going to have rivers of wine again and mountains of butter like we did when
many years ago? Do you think there was a significance, though, that Europe, that the top job, at least within inside the EU, is now held by a woman?
Well, as I say, it could be a disaster, but it could be
what do you think of her, though? You've seen her talk. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, you're right, but are you impressed by her as an individual so far from what you've seen?
Well, I mean, I've only heard what I've seen on. I've only heard what I've seen on the Europe television, and a little bit here on the British one. But I'm sorry, I would not have voted for her myself. But I wasn't given that opportunity. So we see what happens.
Well, that's a fair point, isn't it? That, you know what, she wasn't given the opportunity. No Europeans were. And at the end of the day...
That's not strictly the case.
Well, as in there is no kind of direct representation.
No, of course, but that's because the EU is intergovernmental. I mean, look, the Spitzenkandidat process is established so that the party with the most votes, their candidate gets first choice at forming a majority of support within the parliament to back them. That is clearly within the EPP's gift because they were the first party in the European election. So during the European election, of course, every European citizen had their opportunity to vote. But here's the paradox at the heart of the EU. If you were to make that democracy more direct, as in you were to make the position of Commission President more directly electable, then of course you get into accusations that the EU is turning into a nation state. So it's a compromise, as with all of these things. And my opinion on this is very clear, that when the nomination process comes from the member state governments, it's always going to be substandard. And I would personally favour more directly elected posts.
Isn't that always the problem, that actually the person who gets this job is almost the least offensive to as many people as possible, and actually you don't end up with potentially good politicians at the end of the day?
I think we need to have respect for all the political groups inside the parliament, and that is what Mrs. von der Leyen could have shown. That was an opportunity, and she had the opportunity to express herself to people who represent all the different European peoples here in the parliament, and we did not find all the answers. I really remain actually hungry for more about women's rights, more ambition, and it did not happen. But still now, Ms. von der Leyen is the President of the European Commission. We need to just go on now to work and face the challenges that are coming. This is how democracy also works at a certain point, even if it's not perfect, of course. And we don't want Europe to become a federal state replacing the member states. That's not the position of my party. That's also not my position. I don't think it would be efficient.
OK, let's just bring Anne in one last time, because we'll wrap this into the other question, which is, Anne, you're obviously British. Do you think that Ursula von der Leyen is going to be... English, British, you're both.
I'm English.
There's
a difference.
We'll not argue about that right now, but do you think that actually Ursula von der Leyen might be more sympathetic and a better negotiator with Boris Johnson, if he wins, than Jean-Claude Juncker has been with Theresa May?
Well, I really, really hope so. She really could make a name for herself there if she listens to Boris Johnson, which I'm sure he's going to win. If she would just listen and come up with a solution between the two of them, I mean, that would be wonderful. I mean, I love Europe. I mean, my husband came from Europe. Majority of my family's in Europe. I mean, it's so sad, really. It is so sad when they dug their heels in and they would not budge on the backstop and everything.
Okay.
I really, really hope that there is some solution to our problem here in England.
Okay, Anne, thank you very much indeed for calling in. Let's kind of slightly avoid Brexit for the time because we are going to come back to that, and you've got an opinion on what Anne just said, or indeed anything else. Use the hashtag Raw Politics, or indeed 00800 333 702. Let's just focus on the fact, though. I mean, Brexit is going to be a big issue, and we are going to deal with it after the break, but she's going to have to deal with an awful lot of other stuff, not least of all that this place is so fragmented in the sense that there's no, overall majority like there was for the two big parties before. Is she going to be able to actually achieve half of what she wants to?
I would like to make a comment on that, both from what the lady said, but also for your question. I actually am a bit surprised that the question is more on what Mrs. von der Leyen is going to do, what she is able to do or not, and or whatever. But this is about Europe as it has been until now. When I rethink about the founding fathers, it's not really what has been happening in Europe lately. I think we need to make Europe tasty for the different people inside the different member states, to make Europe more attractive. When you want to criticize Europe and say it should be better, then people will start calling you Eurosceptic. But this is not being Eurosceptic. I am a mom. My kid is 11, and sometimes I'm angry, and sometimes I tell her I don't like what she's doing. I would like her to do something different, and she does the same with me. It doesn't mean we don't love each other. When you love Europe, you want to make it better, and that's there are so many things that don't work. The migration policy doesn't work. It has consequences for the internal market. Inside we have Macron in France, who is doing some protectionism, and at the same time speaking about. So there is so much hypocrisy
you
and all kind of issues.
You have to defend the institutions as well.
Yes, of course I do defend them, but you know what? If we continue this way, people will fall out of love, and this is not what we want.
But do you have to defend the institutions? Because clearly, I mean, people in the United Kingdom, for example, will defend or not defend the House of Lords. Doesn't mean you're undermining democracy. This place potentially does need reform. Why do you have to defend?
Of course it needs reform, but you have to. You can't. You either want to abolish something or you want to reform it. And if you believe in Europe and the power of Europe and the power of working together and institutions that need democratic oversight, then you have to be able to defend the core purpose of the institutions. But in terms of the core question of what we're addressing here, it's actually less the person of the Commission President, more, as you say, the alliances and work that needs to be done in this Parliament. And it would be good if the ECR would back the institutions when it comes to the reform that certainly my group would want to see. I mean,
I suppose I'll be able to reply to that.
If the S&D and ECR can work together on reforms, I'm not precious about where that coalition would come from.
We're just the two of us here discussing. Of course, I don't speak about the S&D.
No. But I'm making the point that actually we can reach across and make alliances that aren't necessarily the alliances that have sustained this place up until now. There are all sorts of new agreements and ideas that can come forward. And as you say, there is no such grand coalition or established
just finally on this, isn't that the weird thing, is that actually, clearly, lots of Socialists and Democrats didn't vote for Ursula von der Leyen last night. It's pretty sure that
majority did.
Pretty sure that potentially some EPP MEPs didn't vote for her, but the Five Star Movement did. The Law and Justice Party in Poland did. Is this the world we now live in? Is this
the ID didn't.
I don't know what people voted, because this vote was supposed to be secret, so I don't try to find out what other people voted.
Well, they did say publicly.
But,
they have said publicly.
Unless they said it. But you know what? I'm new in this Parliament, and I've been watching it from outside, and I still feel what my voters was worrying about, my constituents were worried about. And you know what the problem is? That the distance between the individual people, the people on the street, the guy on the street, and Europe has become so big. So we need to bring that, we need to bridge that gap and make it more to give a soul to Europe again. And this is what is really missing. You know, you see people since weeks speaking about top jobs only, and my impression, it shocks me. You know, I just came from the street and I really want this to be about the people. And I was remembering like an average voter who is thinking, is my pension going to exist? Is my company going to exist? Am I going to be safe? Is Europe going to make sure that terrorism is really
Ursula
fought?
can't do that on
This
her
is
own.
what it's about. This is
She
more.
needs us as well.
This is about Europe. This is not about Ursula. Ursula is just
exactly.
a human being inside that
Okay.
process, but she's also having a big responsibility.
Well,
She has to take it.
we tonight are at least focusing a little bit on Ursula von der Leyen. We're going to pause it there because we do need to take a commercial break. But we want your views on whether you think Ursula von der Leyen has been a good choice for Britain. Also tonight, should Trump apologise for those racist tweets? And we also want to know, do you think the new Commission President-elect might make a difference when it comes to Brexit? We're going to be talking about that with them and you in just a couple of minutes' time. Stay tuned to Raw Politics, your call.
They say they're going to Brexit, although I would hope they would stay in the European Union. I still respect the choice. The Americans voted, they chose for Trump. It's their choice. I respect
I'm not
their
denying
choice.
they chose him. I'm just saying
what I'm
he is
saying,
not, he is not, in my view,
I'm not going to
a
say,
legitimate
if I
president of the
may,
United States. Of course,
if
of
I
course.
may. So I'm 39 years old. I've been facing a lot of racism in my life, mostly from left-wing people who are actually seeing me more as a black. You know, they just see the fact that I am black. They don't know that there is blood in my body. They don't know that I have a brain, that I actually use my brain to think and I use my heart to feel like everyone else. They're kind of, you know, like I have to be socialist because I am black. Since when do anyone tells a white guy you have to be right-wing because you're white? I just don't understand why they're using the color. This is racism. So what Trump said to me, it's not. It's not. Of course, you may have a different opinion, but you know what? I think that people should not talk about the squad, about AOC, or about the other women as if they are babies. These women are brilliant women who can defend themselves. If they are very angry about what Trump said, they will reply, and they can even go to court. So, you know, don't see them as a victim. If someone else says something like that to Trump, he has to defend himself as well.
But a victim
this
goes
is
to
not
court.
racism. This is just negative.
But on
talk.
this, I mean, I don't know whether anyone, someone's certainly, no one has ever said to me to go back home to where I came from.
Some people told things like that to me, and you know what? I would defend myself.
Okay.
But it's racist.
You know what? I don't know this. You know what? Believe me, I have went through a lot of racism.
No, I'm not doubting it. I'm not doubting. But if somebody tells
this,
you to go back to your country of
I
origin,
have been told things
racism,
like that.
and they don't
but
mean
if
Belgium.
someone, you know what? I think. You know, we don't need to just call everything racism.
No, but
some things can be inconvenient
are.
and impolite. But in my opinion, and not only in opinion, in my feeling, I don't know how this can be racist. Some people also say that if you own a dog, you are racist. I saw a tweet that has been retweeted, I don't know how many times, that when white people own a dog, it means they like the fact of owning another human being because they used to own slaves. You know what? I'm black and I like dogs too.
Okay.
So I don't know how this can be racist.
It's a really, really interesting discussion.
And I don't say Trump is doing the right thing by saying these kind of things. I don't support what he said, but I wouldn't call it racist. It's just impolite.
Guys, we're going to pause for 1 second because we do have to take one last commercial break. We've got someone on the line we want to bring in. We're going to carry on this debate about Donald Trump and racism and tweets. We're going to get your views in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned. We're back for the last 5 minutes of the show on Raw Politics, your call, in about 90 seconds. See you then. Welcome back to Raw Politics, your call from the European Parliament in Strasbourg. Into the last 5 minutes of the show, we've been talking about racism and Donald Trump and those tweets. Let's bring in Peter from Poole on the south coast of England. Good evening, Peter. Do you think Donald Trump should apologise for those racist tweets?
Hello? Of course he should, but even if he apologizes, it won't mean it. You cannot explain racism in a rational fashion. Jean-Paul Sartre once said that if trying to explain racism is like trying to explain why somebody doesn't like tomatoes. So even if he apologizes, he won't mean it. He will do it for political expediency.
So you don't believe? Well, I mean, will he apologise though? Because he makes the remark, which is really interesting, that people are loving it, that it's popular.
Well, you know, people like shit. You know, it doesn't make it right.
Okay. Peter?
You know, you can't go by what people like. You've got to go with what is right, especially if you're in a position of power and you're wielding international power like he is.
OK, Peter, thank you very much for that. We also should apologise to viewers at home if you were offended by that word that shouldn't be broadcast before the watershed, so apologise for that. We had Margaret on the line from Glasgow who we can't bring in, who thought the comment was harmless. Isn't the point, though, that Donald Trump is saying this because he knows it's popular? There's a lot of people who agree with Donald Trump in the United States.
Anyway, this is not something I would say. I wouldn't say it to a black person or to a white person, to none of the people. And if it was something that was said to me, I think anyone who says something like this to me, I wouldn't behave anyway like a victim. I'm just going to say what I think also back to you and say, this is my country, you know what. Sometimes I have people in Flanders who tell me I'm not Flemish, and these people are actually a minority.
But they're racist.
No, you know what, I think that this is just stupidity. I know what racism is. Don't you just really trust me on that?
I mean, I know what racism is.
I
well.
know, and you know what? And
we're
proportionally, maybe if you could just let me finish.
No,
and you know what these guys mean. This is far right people saying some things like that. But I mean, if I really trust on AOC and all the other women to be defended, and what I'm surprised about is maybe I missed something, but I didn't see someone asking some Democrat people who also offended everyone by speaking very lightly about terror attacks long time into 9/11. I didn't know. I'm just saying. I'm just showing the double standards when people are being shot and the selective racism. If I can just finish, the selective racism when it's about women of color. I am a former Muslim woman. When I see in your country there are Sharia courts dealing with divorces. It exists in your country.
Yes, but
I saw it.
They don't have any legal power.
Unbelievably. We're going to have to stop this. We're going to have to stop this. Guys, we're literally about to fall off out. Thank you very much.
I take back what I said about
Asita and Seb. Well, there we go. That was certainly a pretty lively end to Raw Politics. Thank you very much indeed for both joining us on the programme tonight. Some strongly held views. Thank you too for joining in and using the hashtag Raw Politics. And that indeed is the end of the programme and indeed the end of this season. We'll be back in September. Thanks for watching and good night.